Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember White. Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson. Here. Councilmember Pryan. Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson. Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Personal appearances, employee recognition.
All right, tonight we have Jason Dennis. He's getting a 20-year award. He is stationed out of C Shift Station 2 now with his recent promotion from firefighter paramedic to fire apparatus operator. So wanted to congratulate you and show some appreciation for your 20 years of service. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Speech. You gotta give a speech too.
You have anything you wanted to say? You Cameron?
You gotta give a speech. Congratulations. Is that it?
Yes, that's all.
All right, unfinished business, none. New business. Number one, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-38.
An ordinance accepting a Mid-America Regional Council contract and grant for services to individuals at the Belton Senior Center.
Present. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion
Yes.
or any information?
Yes, I have some information on that, Mr. Mayor. The Mid-America Regional Council Aging and Adult Services provides grants each year for area senior centers, transportation to senior centers, and to programming. For fiscal '25, Mark has awarded the City of Belton $35,500 toward the operating costs of the Belton Senior Center. Additionally, the city's been awarded $10,000 in reimbursement for the daily transportation or the 2-time-a-week transportation for the Oates bus. This is an annual grant that's received by the city, and if there are no questions, I would ask for a double reading because the grant or the period went into effect July 1.
Go ahead.
When we first started talking about this, there was another service that they were going to look into to provide transportation, and they're not doing that, or we're just going to now until they look into it again?
We decided to stay with Oates for 2 days a week on Tuesday, Friday, our most populated days. Peggy has been speaking with the seniors about the other service, and it's being utilized. It's not something that the city pays for, though.
Oh, okay. I knew that, but I thought that they, when she was talking about it, that might be a fiscal year or thing to do with money. I just didn't know if that worked out or not.
Yes.
Okay.
It is
All right.
working.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion for second reading. Second.
We have a motion and a second for second reading. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2024-38.
An ordinance accepting a Mid-America Regional Council contract and grant for services to individuals at the Belton Senior Center.
Present. Second.
Thank you. Jiminy Christmas. I'm gonna fire you guys. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the second reading of Bill 2024-38? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 2, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-39.
An ordinance readopting ordinance number 91-2073 as amended, establishing a procedure for disclosure of potential conflict of interest and substantial interest for certain municipal officials.
Present. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have some information on this one. The Missouri Ethics Commission requires municipalities with an annual operating budget of more than $1 million to biannually readopt their conflict of interest ordinance. It's easiest to readopt it each year, though, and many municipalities do. Belton's ordinance was adopted in 1991 and is readopted each year, and is codified in Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-40.
An ordinance approving the revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2024 adopted city budget.
Present. Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
Before you tonight, like Andrea said, is an ordinance that will revise the FY24 budget that has concluded. We did some economic development work throughout the year, and the Economic Development Fund was actually over budget by a total of $67,345.52. Real estate was purchased, and then there were some buildings that were demolished. So we need to shore up the Economic Development Fund. Any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Okay, so the majority of this I saw was in the expenses from that capital outlay for the demolition. Can we confirm which buildings those were? I think I know the answer to this, but
I will defer to Joe.
It was the buildings that were over there on Commercial next to Sonic in that area.
perfect, I figured. And then just curious why it came above, but was over what we anticipated.
We didn't budget, and we thought that we could wait if we wanted to for the FY25 budget and write it in. We were having a strong year revenue-wise, and we knew that we could cover the overage as far as the revenues were concerned. So in an effort to try and be expedient in our dealings with that particular piece of land and some potential redevelopment that would occur there that has yet to spur, we were just trying to get everything done quickly so we could move that along.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anybody else?
I
Here.
just had one question.
Go ahead.
And it's on the minor supplies, it was budgeted at 500 and spent 16,000. How did we get so far off?
I can get you an itemized report for that if you'd like. I would say there was probably some technology pieces that went in there, some smaller items, but I can get you a line item detail if you'd
Okay,
like to see
thank
that.
you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Four, motion approving resolution 2024-65.
A resolution approving the purchase of refurbishment and remount of a current Warrior ambulance module onto a new F-550 chassis from Emergency Services Supply in the not-to-exceed amount of $185,000.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This was actually on last year's budget, and it was ordered about April 1st last year, and they're about a year and a half wait. So it's finally slated to get the new chassis in August. So this is just the cleanup and approval of making sure we can go ahead with that purchase. So they'll take our current ambulance and remove the box, clean it up, put some new electronics in it, and repaint it and put it onto a new truck. Any questions if anybody has any?
Questions?
Yeah, just a relatively quick one probably. Do we have an estimated time when we'll get it back?
Yeah, it should be about 90 days from the time we take it over.
Oh.
Yeah,
A lot faster than
a lot faster than building a new one,
Okay.
yeah.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 5, motion approving resolution 2024-66.
A resolution approving an agreement with First Data Merchant Services LLC to provide credit card processing services to the Golf Department.
Present.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. You're up.
Good evening, everyone. This is basically a bookkeeping type of transition. So our point-of-sale system has recommended that we upgrade our processor for our credit card system. Our current processor doesn't allow payments like Apple Pay, Google Pay, Tap to Pay, the security that is required from today's credit card companies. So a change has been recommended. We vetted the company. They are utilized by about 95% of the companies that our point of sale service company utilizes. So we feel very comfortable with that. All of the Kansas City public golf courses that are owned by Kansas City, Missouri utilize the same company for their credit card processing. But it gives us the opportunity with all the changes that are out there, credit card processing wise, to be the most up-to-date and efficient as we can possibly be.
Any questions?
One question.
Go ahead.
In reviewing the contract, we're waiving a right to jury trial. I'm assuming this is because it's a standard contract.
Yes, exactly. We did make some minor modifications to the contract, but that was one that we decided was not worth the fight.
Being an old plaintiff's lawyer on personal cases, I always hate to waive jury trial.
Well, and in the case of the city, everything that we do is in the public, so there's never any really disputed facts for a jury to decide. I don't think that in my 10 years now of practice I've ever ended up with a jury. So,
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
G, consent agenda. One motion non-debatable to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present. Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Communication from City Council.
I don't have anything this week.
All right, I have some updates from Parks, and one of the things that is going underway is the comprehensive plan that has started. And so one of the things that some of the citizens should be on the lookout for is there will be a survey coming out via mail, very similar to the one that the city did for the comprehensive plan about a year ago-ish. So that'll be coming out to select citizens at some point. The Country View Playground, I know there's a lot of questions on that. It should be done in approximately 2 weeks. We were waiting on some parts. There is a cruise night this weekend, this Saturday, from 2 to 6 p.m. on Main Street. There will also be adult theater in the park taking place on August 10th, and this will be at Memorial Station, actually inside Memorial Station. The farmers market is still going on every Thursday, and the only other thing I'll say is there should be a press release relatively soon about the Dryden land name, so everyone should look forward to that.
I got nothing.
I really don't have much to say other than we went Sunday and had a good time at Cass County Fair in Pleasant Hill. My granddaughter got first and second for her pet, so it was a good time. Good time.
Good.
I have just a couple things, and this has been from my walking adventures that I walk back and forth from downtown all the time. A couple people have stopped me and asked me if we could come up with a place to put brush when we have heavy-duty rains and wind, and they have nowhere to, can't tie it up in little bundles. They stopped me twice about this. This lady over here on Commercial especially had a lot of damage and no way to get rid of it. And people have asked me repeatedly to have more updates about road construction and about just more updates available. So those are the things I thought I'd pass on.
Don't have anything, thank you.
I don't have anything either, so, City Manager?
I have a couple of things, Mr. Mayor. We have our finalist interviews for the new Emergency Management Director position being conducted on Friday, so we hope to have someone selected for that role pretty quickly. We also have our employee picnic for employees and their families on August 4th. And I believe that is that's been set as just for the employees and their families. And then financial statements should be on your on the dais for you guys to see. And again, those will also be put online for everybody to see. So that's all I've got.
All right, did I miss anybody? Items for review and discussion. Item 1, economic development policy review.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Up for discussion this evening and review is the economic development incentives policy. We are required by the policy itself to review it every 3 years, and so we are coming up on the deadline here in 2024. This also represented a good, or presented a good opportunity for us to make some changes, some updates to the policy items that I think really would help us, or help me at least in the economic development area. One of the things that, Patrick and I have discussed pretty extensively is, the economic development policy, it's not necessarily law. The policy itself really serves as a guiding document for the council as well as staff to really put out to developers and those that are interested in investing in our community, really puts out what our goals, what our vision is for, and what we find important when it comes to providing incentive tools for certain types of development and certain types of, whether it's commercial development, retail, or industrial business development. And so wanted to just kind of go through fairly quickly. I'm happy to answer any questions about the individual tools themselves. We're not recommending any major changes to some of the tools that really focus on some of our retail and commercial areas like the TIF or the Chapter 100, but do want to get some comments from council, or at least a little bit of direction, especially since with the comprehensive plan, one of the things that we'll be seeing through that plan is a goal, an overall goal that our incentive policy really look at prioritizing wages and the number of jobs to develop some sort of a sliding scale for how much of an incentive would we offer to a developer, really tying those two things together. But like I said, not necessarily anything that's going to be codified. It's not anything that goes into the Code of Ordinances, but really serves more as a guidepost or kind of a guiding document for developers when they take a first blush. So within the policy itself, under the TIF districts on page 4, our policy is really in line as we look across the metro, looking at both Independence, Lee Summit, some of our other counterparts up north in Gladstone, Liberty. Currently, Belton looks at about a 15% of public participation over a 12-year period for a project. That's really where the policy currently targets. Obviously, like I said, with every project there might come a different priority. That TIF might look a little bit different, but we continue to be in line. One recommendation that you'll see from staff or from myself going forward is both in the TIF as well as the Chapter 100 and others is that we include at least, or we start to include a percentage for arts as part of any incentive tool. And so if a developer is interested in coming in, developing commercial, retail, or even business industrial, that there be some sort of a percentage in there for some sort of art, whether it's a contribution to the Arts Commission or artwork that is actually placed within the development. And so we'll be proposing and building that into the incentive policy. On page 10, the enhanced enterprise, or the enhanced enterprise zone. This is one major change that we're going to be recommending. So the state about 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe about 5 years ago, eliminated the program at a state level. It currently operates just in a kind of a, if there were any zones or there any projects that had been approved under this incentive policy, a city is required to keep its EZZ board and keep its kind of its procedures in place. Belton never did approve any projects under this incentive tool. And so since the state no longer uses it, it's transferred mostly into the Chapter 100 program. It's going to be my recommendation that we remove the tool entirely. It was codified. This was a tool that was put together in code back in 2009. And so we would need to have a code update come before the council. But I wanted to at least get that out there for discussion or feedback, if there was any pushback. But right now, there's no projects currently using the tool, no projects that the EZZ board would need to have oversight on, and so it's really not doing anything at this time. The next item on page 15 is our Chapter 100 program. Some of the guidelines that come out of that EZZ program really just transfer directly into that Chapter 100 program. And so we're not really recommending any changes. This really goes back to where we're going to see more of the discussion at the comprehensive plan, where one of the goals is going to be, do we want to create some sort of a sliding scale, or at least some sort of a scale for developers that come in promising we will have jobs at 120% what the county average wage is, or 130% of what the county average wage is? Or do we want to see one that focuses on the number of jobs that a developer would be able to bring in terms of, a primary employer? Those are good pieces to have, especially when we have developers who maybe aren't from the area, or even from the region entirely, that are looking at Belton for the first time and looking to see and get an understanding for what our priorities are. Is it that we want jobs that are higher paying than what the average is, or is it that we're looking for just a higher number of jobs from a given developer? It's a good way for us to kind of start that conversation. But again, every development that comes to town is going to be different, and so each of these tool usages is going to be unique. On page 18 is our Chapter 353. You have heard me mostly talk about this in terms of the Old Town Redevelopment Corporation, our downtown area. For both residential and business investment, we provide a 90% abatement on property taxes. Currently in the policy, I believe the policy would have been adopted, or at least adopted by resolution by the council before that program went into place. And so currently it's only reflecting the 353 that exists on the Odessa property. And so we'll be updating the map as part of this update. But this also is a good opportunity to update the policy on the 353 for the Old Town district, as well as to have a conversation and kind of begin the conversation of expanding that district to areas that we know are in need of some redevelopment or reinvestment, or at least prime for reinvestment, such as North Scott Corridor. And so that's one area where I think we would see a change in the Chapter 353. And the rest of the policy itself is pretty solid, and I'm not recommending any updates there. So that's the neighborhood improvement districts, the community improvement districts, and the transportation development districts. At this time, we're not really seeing any need for an improvement to that area of the policy, and so most likely would be leaving this kind of as a pretty standard section. And then the final area and the end of the policy is the sales tax reimbursement agreement area. We noted on our website that our policy is for 1% for 10 years, but it is not actually captured in the policy itself. And so I think this would be a good time to get that included in the policy itself. Recently, when a developer was asking about the sales tax reimbursement tool, the assumption was that the entirety of our sales tax could be used as part of a sales tax reimbursement. But because some portions of our sales tax are committed to Parks Department, public safety, transportation, we don't have the ability to simply divert those funds for an economic development project. And so I think it's going to be important to capture that, as well as, that 1% is really the only portion of our sales tax in the general fund that we have the ability to use. And like I said, as folks who are looking at this, or developers are looking at this for the first time, we want to make sure we're as clear as possible, as this is what we actually have the ability to do going forward. Those are really at a very high level, some of the changes that we're going to be recommending in the policy itself. Again, the policy really serves as a good guide for when developers approach us with new development and new ideas and are looking to use incentives. But every development is unique. Every development comes with different challenges, whether it's investments in public infrastructure or just the interest in the tenant at the end of the day that we want to ensure we're going to be able to have here in Belton. Kind of allows some flexibility for us to use these tools in a variety of different ways. And so just kind of looking for feedback on where council would like to go. And if you're happy with what you're hearing here, we'll bring this back as a resolution for council to adopt and discuss.
Go ahead.
I'm not quite sure how to phrase the question. So How would I use this when something comes before us?
You as a council member?
Yeah.
It would be like any other planning document that we use. I think the comprehensive plan, because it's going to be coming in front of council here shortly, is probably a good parallel where we have an idea, a vision for how we want to grow the community through that comprehensive plan. These are the tools that we can use to achieve that growth. And based on individual development proposals that come forward, we can steer them towards, we want to be as close to the policy as possible. However, understanding that we have flexibility written into this policy that says, well, we really want that type of business here in town. So we have the ability to move the needle a little bit towards more of a public investment or more of a public participation. Or maybe it's, and I'll use this example, and hopefully this isn't too far out of turn, but if we had a developer who came to town and our vision and our goal in the policy said we want to ensure that we have incredibly high-paying jobs and we want to see a lot of jobs at that, you know, say a warehouse or something. If we had someone that came to us with a data center, 10 jobs, maybe $60,000 per job, this policy would give us at the staff level the ability to go, you're not gonna meet the policy. Like this isn't gonna work. And so it gives us a clear vision for what council would like to see in terms of development, just as much as our comprehensive plan or our strategic planning process or even the budget itself.
That answer your question?
I'm thinking. Somebody
Right.
else, and then I can come back.
Go ahead.
I know that you had mentioned that they could make, contributions, a developer could, but could we, if they were coming in and building apartment complexes or multifamily units, could we request that they do a portion of those at affordable rates for, low, not necessarily low income, but, obviously affordable housing? Could that be something that we ask them to do?
Yes, if they're taking advantage of the tools, we can create a development agreement as part of the usage of these tools that would outline, and we have in the past with certain amenities that needed to be included as part of a development, or a training center, for example, I think is a good example. Part of the negotiation of going to use these tools, then here's an amenity or something beyond just the development itself that you're going to be able to provide to the community as a public good.
So we could actually say like a percentage of the houses or the apartments or whatever you're building need to be affordable? We could be that specific?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go ahead.
For the record, we could always be that specific if we wanted to do something and it's not in the policy, right?
Correct.
Okay. I've got two things. You asked, out of the things you presented, they all sounded like they make sense to add in there, so you've got my rubber stamp. Most notably, I want to talk about that board that we're not using, and the elimination of that from the policy. I think that's important that we clean up language like that, so I think that's definitely the direction to go. Will the comprehensive plan be brought in front of us in a resolution?
Yes, the comprehensive plan would be approved by the city council via resolution.
Okay. So this will be no different than that, and that it's a guiding principle, like at the end of the day, but if there was something unforeseen brought to us that would be outside this policy, we as a council could make a decision to move forward with whatever that unforeseen thing might be.
Correct. Yeah, this policy does not bind this council or future councils, and so, yeah.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly, so.
Correct.
So it's not something I could use to evaluate the request?
We
we could.
I mean, you certainly could, yeah, but we would be bringing, for each individual project, since each individual project is going to be unique, we would be bringing that evaluation to council as part of the overall development process and the incentive process.
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I would recommend that as we're looking at this policy and as it comes forward to you for formal approval in the future, that we keep in mind that we might want to keep it more broad than specific. The reason I say that is because the more specific we get in the policy and the more that we stray from those specifics, if something else comes in and we like this development and it doesn't quite meet the standards in our policy, and then we start, giving that exception, which is fine. I think that we should have that ability to do so, but we also want to make sure we aren't doing that all the time at the expense of, or like I say all the time. We don't want to do that for some and then have someone come in and pitch a proposal that we don't want to approve, and we could end up, being shown to have shown preferential treatment to certain groups or other, you know what I mean? And I don't want to get us in trouble legally by providing exceptions to some and not others. You can see where I'm going with this. And so we don't want to, like, a protected class of some sort could end up making suit that we're discriminating. And so as we're looking at it, just try to keep a little bit of more of an open mind and a broad view on this, and make the hard lines where you're going to want a hard line and you're not going to want to stray from it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Oh,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood how to use this document.
Yeah, and to clarify, I wasn't suggesting in any way that we, go around. I understand the point of a policy, absolutely, and we should stick to it. But I also know that when the citizens really want an Olive Garden and there's an opportunity, we should also, pursue that, right? So that was my thought process of the question.
Anybody else? Any other questions? If you have any questions, send them to city manager and he'll forward them on. So, all right. Item 2, ETC survey review.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On this item, wanted to just get get a little bit of direction on this is the ETC survey specifically for the citizen satisfaction portion. I know recently Community Development, as part of the comprehensive plan, had ETC do a survey as part of that process. Parks and Recreation, I saw their survey here just recently that should be going out to residents, very focused on parks and amenities and trails. Back in 2021, the city of Belton conducted a survey with the first page and a half was really focused on, at the time, asking residents about their preferences when it comes to recycling. The rest of that survey was then focused on some questions about citizen satisfaction about services, the customer service that they receive at City Hall, and kind of some other specific service delivery items. What I would like to get some feedback from council on is, so you have at your dais a copy of that 2021 survey that was sent by our city. There is also a 2021 City of Raymore Community Survey that I would like to model our next survey more closely to. This one's really going to focus on those individual city services, customer satisfaction, or citizen satisfaction levels, as well as just perceptions of the city as an organization itself. And these questions are kind of really important, especially because with ETC surveying across the nation as well as in Canada, we will have really good benchmarking data that we can use to show how well we are compared to other cities of similar size, budget, makeup. And so it becomes a really good piece of information as we start building future budgets, as we start building our strategic planning going forward, that we have this kind of data in hand, especially when it comes to our customer service program, so that we know where are we communicating well, where are we not communicating well. Are there specific programs that have a certain perception of them out in the community, and how can we address those and get ahead of those? So much of what our efforts in the communications area and the customer service area have been, really this is a piece of data that we're missing so that we know how to tackle some of those issues going forward. And so that's what this survey would really focus on. The other survey I included at your dais was also the 2024, the most recent City Elite Summit survey. Very similar in kind of what Raymore had done back in 2021, but just kind of formatted and organized a little bit differently. And so if there are any questions that you have or any concerns, I just kind of wanted to get in front of council now before we go back to ETC with our recommendations on what specific questions and style of survey. And then if there are any specific questions that we want to ask, Usually we're given room for about 3 or 4 questions at the end of the survey. So if there are things specifically we wanted to focus on, we could do that as well in this one.
Any questions? Go ahead.
How much time do we have to peruse all this and get back to you if there is something specific we want to change or add and that kind of?
My goal, so kind of the next steps in this, my goal is to have the survey back to ETC by the end of August.
End of when?
End of
So
August.
we'll have a couple of meetings before it gets back to them.
So we shouldn't be, so I, as a city council member, should not shoot for the end of August to get you the feedback. It really should be at least like a week before then.
Probably if you could get it by the first meeting in August or the week after the first meeting in August.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's just call it 3 weeks. Take 3 weeks, look at it.
I was
if you
gonna
have a
say
question,
2, but okay,
that's
3.
fine.
3's good.
And then we'll put a deadline on it, and that way we can move forward.
Do we, when I was listening to the folks that were doing the comprehensive plan, and they were telling me that they were very excited that they had 7 surveys completed. And they, and I thought that number was extremely low. So we build that into the nationwide numbers, right? So that we know that no, we don't do that, no.
The 7 completed were a different portion of that community feedback. The survey itself was more scientific than that. They
Okay.
did some randomization, and they got a few hundred survey responses to make it statistically valid, which is what we would do here. So,
Okay, all right.
yeah, that was for a specific community feedback portion of the comprehensive plan that they
Okay,
just had.
and do we use these surveys to help think through budget process?
Oh, yeah.
That,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think these surveys can very much help us shape where we're doing well and where we're not doing well. And as we're going through the budgeting process, we can say, look, the community does not like what we're doing here, but they're okay with what we're doing here. Maybe we need to focus over here. And so that,
I
yes.
thought I remembered sitting through that on that part of the room before, and I knew that they had made reference to surveys and budget process. I just have not been on this side of the table to think about that, so thank you.
Anybody else? Got 3 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3, Lily's Plans Day Rescue Rehab Special Use Permit.
Yes, staff is currently reviewing an application for a special use permit for Lily's Play and Stay, which wishes to operate a rescue rehab facility at 1016 North Scott. Since there will be overnight boarding of animals at that facility, the use is classified as a kennel under our land use requirements, which does require a special use permit in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. That public hearing is set for August 6th at Planning Commission, and then their recommendation will be sent to the City Council for a final decision. Lily's is planning on making additional investments at both 1016 North Scott and the property to the south at the corner of Vivian to expand their services in the community. So this is just the first phase of that, which will be utilizing the existing building, but they have additional plans for adding new buildings to the south.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear the address. What was the address again?
It's 1016 North Scott.
What's?
Currently, it's vacant. Before that, I can't remember the name of the business. About 2 years ago, there was kind of one of the Amazon return stores that was operating out of there.
It's just south of the Paradise Bar.
Ice Grill.
That's a good ways off the road, too. It's pretty deep in that.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, for the View Final Plat.
Yeah, we are also currently reviewing the View Final Plat, which is the 11 lot and 1 tract single family subdivision on 2nd Street between Hackberry and Herschel Streets. That final plat is going before Planning Commission along with their final development plan on August 6th. Both of those plans are in compliance with the previously approved preliminary plat as well as the concept preliminary development plan that was approved by the City Council. The final plat will come before the City Council after Planning Commission makes their determination.
Any questions? Go ahead.
When will we be discussing the sale of the property?
We would tee that up after the approval of all the zoning issues, and once the plat and the zoning is finalized and the plan district is finalized, then we would bring forward to you the essentially the contract for the disclosure of land, and then at that point is when it would definitely be appropriate for the council to say, hey, this is our property, we want to make sure that we have this, this, and this as part of this. And so
Would that create a need to go back if, to planning commission or something?
No,
If there's
that's-
certain things that we want out on that property?
we do not, when we do a transfer property, a sale of property, the planning commission does not have any part of that process. They have, their part is the zoning portion of it, which is
Just
what
the
this
zoning,
is about.
okay.
And so, yeah, we would have that on our own as a council.
Anybody else? Hearing none. 5, vacation and final plat, park and ride development.
Yeah, we are also reviewing the final plat for the former Park and Ride lot and a final development plan for the Olive Garden, which will be on Lot 1 of the 2-lot final plat. There's also a second lot that will be just south of the Olive Garden site. Staff has also prepared a vacation application to vacate all rights-of-way and easements on the property and rededicate right-of-way for Peculiar Drive and any easements with the final plat. These items are currently scheduled for the August 6th Planning Commission meeting, and their recommendations will be sent to council for their final decision on the vacation and the final plat.
Any questions?
So, this is probably an inappropriate question, but, so when will we be able to eat at Olive Garden?
Still a lot of steps.
8 months from yesterday.
Okay.
I don't know. Now, don't, I'm just throwing that, I have no idea. Sometime in 2025. Is that better? Is that okay?
It'll have to be.
All right. Any other questions? Item 6, Police Department Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the Police Department Collective Bargaining Agreement, we have negotiated a 1-year extension to the CBA. And as part of that extension, we will be updating the salary structure. And if you guys will see it on the dais in front of you, you guys have this sheet that looks at not only police but also fire, admin, updates to the budget that we would have to go ahead and bring back as a budget amendment in the future. Essentially, you know, we talked about this previously. We talked about the concept of raising salaries, continually rising salaries in the metro area, trying to stay competitive. That's what we're trying to do here with this. Is we're getting ahead of this before we already are trying to make sure that we are able to be competitive when we're trying to hire folks. And we have, I believe, 5 openings in PD right now. Although we do have some people in process, so it's not quite 5, it's probably closer to 3. And we don't want that to get worse, let's put it that way. We've had some good positive momentum. We think that the momentum is not just from that perspective, but also from a culture perspective. And so we just wanted to get ahead of the game here. And you've heard a lot about Kansas City raising their pay. Independence has got a really drastic thing that they're considering to raise pay. Raymore's done some stuff. I mean, everybody around us is going through this process. And so if we weren't proactive and we waited until the CBA was up in a couple of years, we would have been way, way behind. And I would have expected police probably would have come to us way before that and said, the union would have come to us and said, hey, you guys are falling behind. Can we fix this? And so I think that the fact that we took the initiative is just another feather in our cap in trying to create the culture of valuing our employees and knowing that it's such a highly competitive market for police officers that we just need to remain competitive. If we don't stay competitive, the culture doesn't mean as much. Let's just put it that way. If we're competitive, the culture can win out. And so essentially what I'm trying to ask you guys to look at here, and we will bring it forth in a budget amendment and a CBA amendment, is in police, we're going to do essentially what we did in fire. We'll have a 3-year step down of going from 18 steps to 16 steps this year to 14 steps next year to 12 steps the 3rd year of the agreement, which has been a highly sought after development from the union's perspective. And then Yeah, and so the first year we're going to be a little aggressive on the raise front, just to try and make sure that we're keeping competitive, and then that the years 2 and 3, the steps down to 14 and 12 will help us create that keep competitive. It'll give a natural raise as those steps are shrinking. So this year's increase to the budget, you'll see in front of you, is about $314,000, almost $315,000 for the police side of it. When we did our fire CBA and shrunk the steps for fire and did the whole raise for firefighters and paramedics, we did not include fire admin, and so we do want to make sure we remain competitive there, and that kind of created a compression issue, and we didn't want to have folks below, the fire battalion chiefs and whatnot, making more than the fire battalion chiefs we're making. And so what we're planning to do with the fire is just provide an extra step. They're going to have a step this year, so what we'll do is we'll provide 2 steps this year, which will help us address that compression issue in the most fair and equitable way. And so the combined 2 things will cost us, $345,000 roughly for this year's budget. So luckily our revenues are strong this year so far, and I think we will have zero problem meeting that obligation.
Any questions?
That last piece you said, I understand we might not have a very specific line item as Casey likes and requires, but can you give a general overview of where this increase is going to come from?
Well, we have very healthy fund balances, and then just our revenue this year is strong enough that it's going to help us. We're not going to have to cut necessarily a specific line or take from another line, we don't believe, other than maybe just draw down a little bit of the fund balance.
All right. The fact that we're having this discussion, does this mean the negotiations are done, or are they still ongoing?
Police has already approved these proposals, and which would include the new pay scales and the extension of 1 year on the CBA, and so I believe they had that vote last week.
So,
and so this is for the final approval.
So this isn't just a TA. This is
we're gonna bring this forward for a formal adoption next meeting, and then as soon as it's adopted, we can put it in place.
So on that front, I know we are making a request or 2. I don't remember exactly. I know that we had, in honor of this, right? Did we get those requests, I guess, is where my question's going with this. And if that's something that I'm just asking from a high level, if it needs to go into more detail, we don't need to have this conversation presently, but I guess that's
Help me follow where you're going with that, sorry.
So my understanding when we were opening this up is we were going to have an ask to the police as well. And so besides, offering the higher budget, so I'm wondering if we got our ask.
Our ask was to extend it for a year, extend the CBA. That was the only specific ask. We didn't ask for any other give backs or anything else. There's no other consideration as part of this ask. It was just the extension of 1 year, which will help us align it with the fire CBA, which I think will allow us to be more equitable as we're negotiating both contracts to ensure that we're treating both sides fairly.
So everyone's in agreement on that?
Yes.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none. That's all that. Item L, motion to enter executive session. Discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1, pertaining to leasing and purchase of sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2, pertaining to hiring, fire, discipline of promotion of personnel according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.3, pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.12, pertaining to individual identifiable personal records, performance ratings, or records obtained employees or applicants for employment according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.13, if the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there. Man, that was a mouthful.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Thompson?
Yes.
Richardson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
and Mayor Larkey.
Aye, motion carries.